I watched $800 billion vanish from the crypto market in just a matter of hours. It was like the floor had just opened up beneath our feet. One moment, everything is normal. The next, I'm staring at cascading red candles and thinking, is this really happening? My heart was pounding, Telegram chats were blowing up, and I'm pretty sure that I felt the earth spin just a little bit faster. But here is the wild part. Out of all of that chaos, I stumbled onto a clue about XRP's future that absolutely floored me. Seriously, right? This recent flash crash might have revealed a hidden superpower in XRP. Something that suggests when the time comes to send XRP to the moon, and potentially even beyond, it won't take nearly as much money as a lot of people thought. It sounds crazy, right? Well, I didn't first want to believe this either, but stick with me because by the end of this story, you might just see XRP in a whole new light. I know that a lot of people did. And no, this isn't some hopium fairy tale. It's a personal rollercoaster ride through real events and data that had me questioning everything that I thought I knew about how crypto markets actually work. So, let's dive in. Now, I do remember it rather vividly. It was a Friday and I was casually checking the markets, that quick peek that we all do. Then boom, I saw Bitcoin free falling and the entire market going into full-on panic mode. Within hours, hundreds of billions of dollars were wiped out. It was kind of one of the steepest sell-offs that I've ever really witnessed. So picture this, right? Total crypto market cap plunging from around $4 trillion to the mid $3 trillion in just half a day. Right, we're talking a historic drop. Now, my phone was buzzing non-stop. Our free educational Discord server, the link, by the way, is in the description, was completely freaking out. Everyone was trying to figure out what the heck had just happened. Now, if you were there, then you know it kind of felt like watching a train wreck in slow motion, except it was our portfolios that were on the line. So, what triggered this crypto apocalypse? Well, some pointed to a certain big political piece of news, 100% tariffs on China. Thanks to that curveball, of course, and rumours of whales even manipulating the market. Whatever the cause, it was a bloodbath, right? Bitcoin had plunged from around $121,000 to about $102,000 in a blink. But the real shocker is that XRP took an even harder punch, right? We watched XRP plummet from roughly $2.80 down to $1.50. That's nearly half of its value evaporating in just hours. Nearly 50% gone. Right now, I remember staring at the charts thinking it had to be a glitch, but it wasn't. Right, that day, XRP had the steepest single-day drop in years. Liquidations were firing off like fireworks on the 4th of July. Over $700 million in leverage positions, yes, $700 million, got wiped out across exchanges. Right? Apparently, it was the largest XRP long liquidation event in history, around $422 million flushed in one go. Right? According to reports anyway. So it was absolute carnage. By the evening, the market was a ghost town of liquidated traders. Bitcoin was trying to find its footing at around $112,000, and XRP had clawed its way back to roughly $2.30, $2.40 per coin. Still way down from earlier on, but a relief after that scary dip. Now, I was a bit shell-shocked but glued to the screen because something interesting was happening amid all of this rubble, right? While everyone was licking their wounds, I noticed a post from Chad. He's a well-known voice in the XRP community. He's always buzzing about some kind of theory or another, right? And Chad wasn't just twiddling his thumbs with the crash like the rest of us. He was actually pointing out a bright side. Just imagine that, right? Finding a silver lining when your coin just got nearly cut in half. It's pretty bold, right? Now, Chad basically said, and I'm paraphrasing here, this crash proved that When they're ready to ride XRP to infinite, or at least infinity, it won't actually take as much money as people think. I was like, excuse me, what? Right? Because people, they forget this. Now, ride to infinity, not much money. My skeptic alarm was going off, of course, because we just saw a 50% discount, right? Now, I almost rolled my eyes thinking, here we go again, more XRP moonboy hopium. But I remembered. Right? I remembered reading it again, and I was kind of referencing something very specific that had happened during the crash. And it was more that, at least the more that I dug into it, the more that I realized that actually he's right, and he is onto something that I've been talking about for many years, and it is pretty profound. So let me set the stage. Now, according to Chad and what I've been talking about for a while, is that during this particular flash crash, XRP's market cap had dropped by about $100 billion to kind of hit that bottom of around $1.17. And yes, it wicked even lower than the $1.50 that I saw briefly. But here is the kicker. It actually regained that $100 billion in market cap as the price bounced back. And it did so on what appears to be just a trickle of money actually coming back in. So we're talking a relatively minor wave of exchange inflows that coincided with a rebound. So in plain English, only a small amount of XRP was actually deposited back into the exchanges, yet XRP's total value on paper shot back up by tens of billions of dollars. That sounds pretty insane, right? It's kind of like losing an arm and then growing it back overnight because you drank a protein shake. Now, at first glance, you might be thinking, oh, just new money poured in to pump it right back up. But not so fast. Exchange inflows, coins moving into exchanges, usually means that people are getting ready to sell, not to buy. So that was pretty odd, right? Why would XRP's market cap rebound on exchange deposits? Now, this is kind of where I have to put on my detective hat. I remembered that market cap is rather sneaky. It is misleading, right? And it's got a misleading number associated with it because it is literally just the price times the total coins, right? Or the circulating coins. Now, it doesn't mean that someone's actually paid that amount of money for all of the coins. I go back to saying that I bought XRP pretty much at around 10 to 11 cents, right? And it's way more than that. So there's this mythical kind of theoretical number in the middle. Now, a tiny amount of trading can, of course, move the price quite significantly, which can multiply across the entire supply as market cap, right? So it's kind of like there are 100 apples and the last apple sold for $2. Suddenly, all the other apples are now worth $2 each. So you say the apple market cap is $200, but in reality, only $2 actually changed hands for that last apple. Do you see where I'm going with this? So, to kind of back this up, I dug into the data on actual buying during the recovery. There's a metric called the cumulative volume delta, this is the CVD, which basically tracks net buying versus net selling on exchanges. Now, I pulled up the CVD data, and at least from a few different major exchanges like Bitstamp, Coinbase, Binance, Upbit, right? At the time, the XRP had bounced, and the results kind of blew my mind. Right? By those estimates, only about $118 million of net buying volume actually came in during the rebound rally. So let me say that again. Roughly $118 million of new buying corresponded with a $100 billion increase in XRP's market cap. So my jaw was on the floor, right? It dropped lower than maybe even XRP's price did during that day. Right now, we always hear about how crypto market caps are deceiving, right? I talk about it all the time and have done for many years. But we actually got the ability to see it in action. And wow, right? It's one thing to know about it, academically, and it's another to actually watch it play out in real time. So let's think about what that actually means, right? A relatively small influx of capital, say on the order of $100 million, potentially pushed XRP's valuation on paper up to another $100 billion. Now that's a factor of 1/3 1000x, right? The multiplier effect in crypto can be pretty bonkers under the right conditions. Now, it's not always that extreme, of course, right? The market was super thin on those order books and volatile right after the crash, which, exaggerates all of these moves. But still, the principle stands true, right? When XRP has upward momentum and the sell pressure isn't there, well, it doesn't actually take a tidal wave of money to make a tsunami, right? A small spark can ignite a huge fire. Now, at this point in my research, I had to pinch myself. Is this real? Am I actually about to see and start believing all of those wild XRP price targets that we all just used to roll our eyes at? Right? Now, before we go any further down this particular rabbit hole, though, let me just hit pause and say something rather important. Now, this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, that's the disclaimer done. We had to do it. You know the drill by now. You've got to stay safe out there. Now, let's get back to the story. Now, the point is that when it's time to push XRP up, it won't actually take as much money as a lot of people think, right? It's starting to actually make a lot more sense, right? At least hopefully it is for you guys. Now, we literally saw a glimpse of what is to come. Just a smidge of buying pressure actually helped XRP bounce big time. And it got me thinking. Maybe there's a lot of us that have been looking at the crypto market all wrong, right? We think if, let's say, XRP were to ever hit some crazy high price, then somebody must have poured trillions of dollars into it. But that is not the case, right? That's not how market cap works. Maybe it just takes the right market conditions, low supply on exchanges, Coinbase, right? High FOMO, a catalyst like ETFs, right? A relatively modest capital can snowball into enormous moves. Now, this cuts both ways. The crash itself proved just how a little bit of selling, cascading liquidations, can tank the price dramatically on those thin order books. Now, it's kind of like the market is a tightly wound spring, right? When it's wound up, with leverage, hype, etc., even a small nudge can unleash a huge snap. Now, we saw it on the downside, and according to this idea, well, it can happen to the upside too. Right? Honestly, it's a little bit scary and exhilarating all at the same time. It means that volatility isn't going anywhere, but it also means that those sky-high targets, or sometimes, or at least something that sometimes you hear for XRP, well, I always say that they're likely, not going to say that they're likely or not, but after all, nothing is guaranteed. But they might not be as impossible as a lot of people actually think in terms of raw dollars needed. Now, let me just inject a personal anecdote here, right? Because as a crypto nerd, I'm always exploring projects and ideas that tap into this notion of small inputs, big outputs. Now, one of the things that recently caught my eye is a project called Unity, right? There is a link in the description for this, by the way. Now, Unity isn't the focus of today, but it is at least fitting the theme of this little kind of prices, or these pieces that make up the big whole picture, right? Essentially, Unity nodes let regular people like you and me run nodes on our smartphones, like these ones over here, right? As part of a much larger network, right? Thousands of tiny nodes working together instead of a giant server, for example. It's pretty cool, right? Now, I was intrigued enough that I wanted to purchase a Unity node, which came with 200 licenses so that I could set up a little kind of mini node license bundle, if you will. Right? Anyway, once their app goes live, I'm planning to run a small test with these 10 phones right here that I have on my desk, just to see this in action. Will it make me rich? Well, the calculator on their website's interesting. I wouldn't say rich, but quit your 9 to 5 potential, right? That's not really the point of what I'm doing here, though. It's all about experimenting because I love to see how decentralization can actually empower the little guys. Now, Unity has got a rewards calculator on their website so that you can go ahead and get an idea as kind of what running these things might actually yield you. But please do your own research if you are curious. I'm going to drop the link in the description for anyone who is interested in that particular rabbit hole. Again, this is not financial advice. It's just something geeky that I'm playing with. The idea of verifying telecommunications via your own mobile phone seems rather cool, innovative, and interesting to me. So I'm playing around with it. And if their calculator is right, who knows? Maybe those small nodes will one day contribute to something significantly bigger. Anyway, it's the whole strength in numbers concept. Many small contributors creating to a larger impact, which, funnily enough, loops right the way back into what we've witnessed with XRP's price action. And speaking of contributions, I should also mention that if you're trading or investing and you're looking for a platform, then I personally do use a couple of different crypto exchanges, things like Blowfin, BitGet, and LBank for many of my moves. Here's quick transparency though, right? I do have affiliate links for a lot of these exchanges in the description down below. There's a link to our website which holds all of the different affiliate links for the exchanges that we do personally use, right? Which means that if you do use them, it actually helps support the channel here at no extra cost to yourself. Now, I always do appreciate the support, and I only partner with platforms that I actually use and trust. So if you do need an exchange, whether that's Blowfin, BitGet, LBank, Kraken, whatever, then go ahead and check out that link in the description down below, and feel free to check them out. They are free to use, of course, there's no pressure, but if you do use them, thank you in advance. Okay, so by now you see how a tiny $118 million buy fest translated into a, gargantuan market cap rebound for XRP. So let's unravel what could this mean looking forward, right? Because one obvious implication is that if sometime in the future, a bigger wave of money, let's say institutional money or a broad investor frenzy flows into XRP, well, the price impact could be disproportionate. In other words, XRP could blast off with much less fuel than we'd actually ever expected to need. Now, this is something that XRP holders have speculated for absolutely ages, often tied to theories like banks will use XRP and supply will dry up, or whales are waiting for the right moment. Now, I usually take those theories with a heap of salt, but after seeing it live in real time just a couple days ago, I get why people are excited about this concept. It's like seeing a sneak preview of what could actually happen on a much larger scale, a prelude to the XRP ETFs, if you will. I mean, just imagine, hypothetically, if $1 billion of net buying came in. That's nearly 10 times the $118 million that we saw. Not saying that it will happen, all at once, but just humor me here. With similar market conditions, i.e. thin supply and high sentiment, you could theoretically see an outsized effect. Now, Chad and myself even kind of mused something like this, saying that if a few million can move XRP by tens of billions, just imagine what a few billion indeed would do, right? Just imagine. Now, reality check. The market likely won't always be as thin on those order books, during, like we saw with this flash crash recovery. In normal conditions, order books are maybe a little bit thicker, more resilient, right? So you won't necessarily get the 1000x ratio, right? But we don't need that, right? At least market cap to inflow ratio on a regular kind of Tuesday, shall we say. But in a kind of squeezed scenario, low float, hype mode, the sky is really truly the limit. Now, we've seen echoes of this in the past crypto manias. Think about early Bitcoin days or smaller altcoins where there's little kind of demand spike sends them vertical, right? With XRP, right, we are usually kind of talking about a top tier coin with high volume. But if a lot of XRP is locked up or held off of the market, what could actually happen as people hodl, or if institutions stash away supplies, right? The liquid flow might just shrink, and then the price gets super sensitive to the buy bursts. I also want to acknowledge the flip side to this, right? The risks and the responsibility, because Sometimes or something can moon on a little capital doesn't mean that it's going to or that it's guaranteed or that, it'll stay there forever, right? If anything, this recent crash and bounce just shows how unpredictable things actually are. 1 minute we're in a multi-year highs and the next minute we're down 47% and liquidations are annihilating people, right? 1.6 million people to be exact. Then a quick bounce, and it's enough to kind of give anyone a bit of a whiplash. Now, it reminded me that personally not to overextend on the leverage, right? Lessons are learned again. And obviously to keep dry powder, ready for the opportunities and the emergencies. Now, fortunately, because I do hold trading sessions down in our Discord server with our Discord members, we were all short on the market just ahead of this drop in the market. So we were actually using reasonable risk management, low leverage, good stop losses and take profits, and we were able to capitalize on this move to the downside. At the same time, we had dry powder to deploy, so we were able to pick up some pretty decent cryptocurrencies at bargain prices. Now, unfortunately, not everyone was in the same boat, but for the community down in the Discord, we definitely took advantage of it. Now, of course, volatility is a double-edged sword. It can make fortunes or it can absolutely ruin them. So as excited as I am about the potential here, I'm equally cautious, right? I'm analyzing all of this, not just XRP to infinity confirmed, right? But to understand the mechanics so that I can navigate this wild market even better. Now, if you're an XRP holder or just crypto curious, which is a weird thing to say, what's the takeaway from my little adventure here down this rabbit hole? Well, for me, it is that the relationship between money in and price out is non-linear, right? Crypto markets are weird and wonderful, right? A small catalyst can have an outsized impact if the conditions are just right. It's kind of like the butterfly effect, right? A butterfly flaps its wings or a whale places a buy, right? And you get a hurricane on the charts, right? Now, this realization has me watching the market metrics in a whole new way, right? I'm paying a lot more attention to things like exchange reserves, how much XRP is actually sitting on the exchanges ready to be sold. And those CVD metrics to gauge real buying versus selling. Now, in fact, I've been chatting with people in our Discord about all of this. It's fascinating to crowdsource, interpretations of all of these metrics. But a shameless plug for you guys, if you're not already in the Discord, you should hop on in. It's completely free, it's educational, and it's got a great community that loves dissecting all of this stuff. Another insight is that market cap can be really misleading, or a misleading mistress, if you will. People toss around market cap numbers to say X can't reach Y price because that would mean Z market cap, right? And it's not something that I've really bought into. It's not something that I've ever done before, but I do see it all the time in the comments or from other influencers on TikTok or YouTube or wherever, right? But events like this really make you question that idea, right? Because market cap is misleading. It is not the amount of money that's actually in the asset. It's not liquid. You could never actually extract all of the money. The stock market is exactly the same, right? Which is why you saw like 1.2 trillion or whatever got wiped out from the stock market. It's just theoretical money. It's not real money at all. It's just a snapshot of the price multiplied by the supply. And yes, if XRP hits, let's say $10, its market cap would be enormous and seemingly unrealistic by today's standards, sure. But that's not how much new money would actually be needed to flow in to get it there. Possibly significantly far less than the actual raw market cap increase, right? It's a weird little concept that's hard for a lot of retail traders to get their heads around. And it's something that traditional finance folks sometimes struggle with too. But this is all because they're used to thinking in terms of market cap equals company valuation, which is harder to actually budge, right? But crypto's low friction global markets and often thinner liquidity can make for some rather explosive math. By the end of this insane day, after connecting all of the dots, I sat back and I kind of felt a mix of, I guess, trepidation and excitement, right? Trepidation because, wow, right, this is a volatile ride. And if a mere rumor or whale can nuke the markets, then we're all playing with fire. Make sure that you have your oven mitts on. But I'm also rather excited here because I saw a glimpse of what could happen if momentum swings the other way, right? it made me a little bit more optimistic that maybe those of us who believe in certain projects aren't as crazy as the mainstream analysts maybe think. Right? I mean, we might still see a little crazy, seem a little crazy, but you kind of have to ride these crypto waves one way or the other. But I have data points to back up all of our hunches here, and it's rather encouraging. I'll also say this, right? That day reinforced why we need to be adaptive. 1 minute greed, next minute fear, right? The crypto fear and greed index went from high greed to deep fear practically overnight, right? Times like these separate the investors who had done their homework and managed their risk from those who YOLO'd without a plan, i.e. 100x leverage, and basically are the ones that caused all the problem. So if you're kind of listening to my story here today, then take it as a friendly nudge to always stay curious and prepared, and have access to as many different exchanges as you can, because during this particular crash, many were preventing you from onboarding and actually taking advantage of the dips. Many were struggling under the load. So having multiple exchanges is always a good option. For remember, right, the link in the description to our website for all of the affiliate links, and just be prepared. Sign up to all of them, KYC on all of them, and make sure that you always have a route to take advantage of the market when the time comes. And I kind of felt all of this is a bit positive and educational, right? All in a day. Would otherwise have been maybe terrible. And that's kind of the mindset that helps in this space. You got to look for the lessons and not just the Lambo dreams. So circling back to our original little tease here, right? When they're actually ready to ride XRP to infinity, it won't take as much money as you think. Now, do I think XRP is literally going to infinity? No, let's be real. But do I think XRP or any other major crypto could explode upwards under the right conditions with far less capital than the market cap figure would imply? Absolutely, right? I just saw a micro version of it actually happening in real time, and it got me even more pumped and vigilant than ever before for what might be coming in the not so distant future. The crypto markets can flip the script in a heartbeat. Today's despair can be tomorrow's euphoria, and vice versa. After this wild ride, one thing is for sure, I'm strapped in for whatever comes next. I've got my eyes open, my strategy ready, and I'm signed up to all of the exchanges in that link in the description below. And we also have a community of fellow enthusiasts to navigate all of this with, so shout out to all the guys in the Discord and here on the YouTube channel. Right, we're all learning and we're all growing through all of these experiences. And hey, maybe next time I won't be so shocked when XRP or another coin pulls a magic trick on the charts. Or maybe I will. Who am I kidding, right? This space never ceases to amaze. Either way, I'm going to be here sharing the journey with you guys, one crazy crypto story at a time. Now, if you found this little adventure as eye-opening as I did, you can do me a favor by hitting that like button, hitting the subscribe button, and joining me on the next one. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Catch you soon.